It's showtime. Okay, we're live. So thank you, Simon, for joining me. Just wait for a few minutes, or not a few minutes, a few seconds, for a few people to join us. Let's hope they're around this lunchtime. So just come back from holiday. How was it?
It was absolutely superb. I went to Centre Park, the only Centre Park I've not been to, which was in Woburn. And the whole process was fascinating. You know, the booking process is now different. Obviously, it's all online. The fact that you can only go swimming twice, you have to pre-book that in. You have to pre-book everything. And so I thought this will be an interesting experience. But as ever with these things, it was the human interaction of the people that made the whole experience that little bit better. And it was really good fun. Yeah, I went with my kids. Well, the youngest one's 23 and the oldest one's 30. But I did take along a 13-year-old nephew for a hoot, and that was good fun. So we did all the stuff you'd expect: archery and biking and escape room. Have you ever done an escape room?
Yes, I did one recently for my son's birthday, or not so recent, going back to, can't even remember. It was fun, wasn't it?
Brilliant fun, really, really good fun. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it.
Good. Okay, so Andy Overman, thanks for joining. Chris, thanks for joining. So afternoon, Stephen and Simon, hope you're well. Yeah, we're both doing well. So please like it, share it, get the message out. We are joined today by Simon Bradbury, Managing Director, Thomas Morris Sales and Lettings, 7-branch organisation in Bedfordshire, Cambridgeshire and Hertfordshire. Also, Fine and Country member. I know you're a proud member of that. I know you also sit on the National Advisory Council for RAN, Relocation Network, and the IT and Marketing Committee for Fine and Country.
Yeah.
Hi, Zoe. Thanks for joining us. So thanks so much, Simon, for giving up your time this lunchtime. Really appreciate it. Hi, Shell. Thanks for joining as well. So tell the audience a bit about yourself, Simon, and how you got into an estate agency and how you became MD of really award-winning, successful organisation.
Gosh, I didn't know I was that interesting. It sounds great when you put it out like that. Where did I start? Well, I started off, by way of background, I'm interested in all the sorts of stuff that polite society say you shouldn't be interested in. So I'm really interested in religion. I'm an atheist myself, but I'm really interested in religion and the way that works for people. And I'm utterly fascinated by politics. And the reason I mentioned that to answer your question is that I started my life in politics. I worked for the Conservative Party at the time as a Conservative Party agent. And that was absolutely fascinating. And that's what brought me to Cambridgeshire. I was the Conservative Party agent for the South West Cannon. Sir Anthony Grant was the MP. And that was a really interesting period of my life. And I've stayed interested in politics, and I still go to the House of Commons from time to time and stay in contact with people. But I particularly like to talk to people who have the opposite political view to me. So that was really, really interesting. But then I decided, at the time, money was important to me. And I decided that there wasn't enough money in politics that I could see. And then I saw an advert in a newspaper to be a different kind of agent, an estate agent. I didn't even know what estate agents did. And it's for a company called Eakins, Dilly and Handley.
Okay, great name.
Yeah, a very, very lovely, old-fashioned company in many ways. But also they were genuinely recognised at the time as being quite innovative. They brought over people. There's a chap called Joe Clock, which I don't think anyone's ever heard of now. He came over from America and taught Eakins how to be really effective real estate agents, introduced things like colour photographs and all sorts of radical things at the time. And it isn't just my view or their view that Eakins, I'll call Eakins short for Eakins, Dilly and Handley, were one of the best agents in the country. They were in fact identified by the Prudential, who people might know had a dalliance, for want of a better phrase, in a estate agency in the mid-80s. So I joined Eakins in about 1983, I think. Started off usual thing, office junior, doing the photocopying, doing the odd viewing, and then blah, 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 blah. And then by the time I got to be branch manager within a couple of years, Prudential had identified Eakins as being what they considered to be, at any rate, the best agent in the UK. And that was the first estate agency that they bought.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Obviously, being a young man at that time, I didn't know the difference between corporate and independent agents. I still now dispute the differences. It's often muted on various public arenas, but anyway, that's a different story. And I thought, wow, this will be exciting, part of this big company. But of course, it might have been exciting, but it wasn't as successful as Prudential thought it was going to be. They eventually ended up losing a lot of money, tried all sorts of things which didn't work, and some things that did work. And then it was taken over by the Woolwich. I was offered redundancy and then given a month to think about taking my redundancy. I went to Milton Keynes as an area manager for about 3.5 weeks. And then I decided that I would join my previous Eakins, Dilly and Handley clients, David Thomas and Hugh Morris, who were previous colleagues of mine. And I used my redundancy money to join them as a partner. And that's how I started with they've been going for about 6 months in 1991. And then I won't bore you with the full story, but we built up to 7 branches. We started an estate agency training company, which we've now sold on. We did we really got into conveyancing at an early stage. We set up a company called Partners Financial. Learned a lot about selling mortgages and related products to a estate agency, as well as we didn't get into lettings immediately, although now we're relatively big into lettings, and we're still now massively into financial services and to conveyancing, which again, I know there's often some controversy about it, and that's absolutely fine, but I feel that there's massive opportunities that people miss out on these related products and services. So yeah, we built up to 7 branches. Along the way, we then joined the Fine and Country network. We were one of the first people to license the Fine and Country brand, which I've had huge amounts of fun with. Really, really enjoyed it, and we've made some good money out of it as well. Then about 4 or 5 years ago, we were acquired by LSLI, which are part of the LSL network, which the LSLI are the sort of naughty boys of the LSL network. We're given massive amounts of freedom to do what we think is right. We have a significant amount of support from LSL, particularly in respect to compliance. And it still feels totally like it's my own business. And now nearly all my partners have gone. One partner's left, Kevin Thomas, who's stayed with us as a consultant. Yeah, and there we are. That's probably about it.
Brilliant, thank you. So I've got a few questions to ask you on that. Just a few hellos. Hi, Dean, thanks for joining us. Hi, Pete Lawrence, thanks for joining us. Tom McGee, yeah, he used to work in politics, not anymore. And Luke Sinclair, joined by an industry giant today. There you go. So,
I never put on a bit of weight, but I think that's an exaggeration.
Thanks for joining us, all of you. So politics to estate agency, bit of a difference. Yeah,
definitely. I still love my politics. I absolutely love politics. I watch it all the time on the television, read about it all the time, and I just think it's fascinating. But I prefer being an estate agent to a politician.
Okay, well, you're an exceptional one, so thanks again for your time. I appreciate it. So let's talk about financial services and conveyancing, because I agree. I think it's a massive opportunity. So when going back, when I was an agent at Green and Company, it wasn't for me actually about the money. It was just knowing if I had a financial advisor or I had a conveyancer that I could call up, it was going to speed the sales of speed the whole process through. The sale would go through a lot quicker. It's easier to pick up the phone. I mean, why should agents be looking at using recommended solicitors? You're looking at conveyancing, financial surveyors. What's your opinion? And again, I agree with what you say about the certain industry press, what they say or not.
Yeah, and everyone's entitled to their view, and that's a good thing. I mean, obviously, people look at the commissions that we make, and they are significant. There's no point in pretending otherwise. But genuinely, that isn't the main reason. It's to help us solve the problems of our buyers and our sellers. So, for example, on the conveyancing side, we reckon to gross sales, we average about 110% of gross sales we do conveyancing units for, which is, I'm very pleased with that. That sounds good to me. And there are two things I would say that you need to, first of all, you need to have a really trusted supplier, and you need to have a relationship with that conveyancing supplier. It isn't about how much commission they kick back to you. It really isn't. It's, are they on the same page as you? All too often I'll say, oh, I've tried such a company and that didn't work, and this company and that didn't work. I would say this about all suppliers, to be fair, but particularly on conveyancing and financial services, you really do need to understand what the conveyancer does, and they need to understand you and where you're coming from. It might all sound a bit corny, but that is genuinely what I believe in. You need to have regular communication. In the old days, that was a proper meeting. Now it's on whatever platform you want to use. And you need to have an attention to detail so that when something goes wrong, and that's a when, not an if, when something goes wrong, it's jumped on straight away. Everybody knows where they're going. Everybody knows what they're doing. That's the basics that you've got to have set up. If you haven't got those basics, if you haven't got stage one set up, I wouldn't even bother going to stage two. But stage two is then setting up the processes that are involved. Again, I know it's a bit boring, processes, but the processes that are involved are really, really key. So you need to have crib sheets, prompts, whatever euphemism you want to use, that at every single stage of your interaction, that you share with people what you're offering and why they should use your service. So, for example, if you go out on a listing appointment, often people haven't thought past the fact that they just want to put their house on the market. You may have dug down and found out why they want to put their house on the market and what issues they've got and what problems they want to solve. But often they don't realise how complicated it is, because in their mind, it's really easy, isn't it, being an estate agent? You just put it up on Rightmove, you get a viewing, you get an offer, the agent might negotiate a few extra quid, and then it's done and dusted. I think that sometimes sharing with them that the legal process is important. It can bring opportunities if it's done properly, and it can bring challenges if it's not done properly. And I think people need to bring that up. And sometimes I suggest to our colleagues that we bring that up with what we call an allegorical story close, which is, if it's appropriate. We sold a property to this Mrs. Smith just a couple of years ago, and there were issues with the deeds or issues with that. Oh, well, yeah, what we would recommend, it's up to you, but what we would recommend is that you start the legal work as soon as you can. And these are the people that we recommend, and that's why. And I would say, I couldn't give a percentage of it, but most people are going to be open to that. Why wouldn't they be open to it? They might say, oh, I've got my uncle's a conveyancer, or my dad says I should use such a conveyancer. That's fine, but at least find out about it. I'm not going to go through the whole process, but the idea is that at every opportunity where it's appropriate, bring up the situation that you have a recommended conveyancing partner, whoever that might be. And I'm sure I'm not just speaking for Thomas Morris, we've all been unbelievably busy. And I hadn't done accompanied viewings for literally years. In the last few Saturdays, I did 7 accompanied viewings on the Saturday before I went away on holiday, a week last Saturday. And I was having to brush up on my conveyancing lead skills. But I got a conveyancing lead at 5 out of the 7 people. And what I found worked quite well was I'd say to the viewers, have you heard about the changes in the legal process at the moment? No. Oh, okay. So, and then I go through with them the issues about coronavirus and the issues that people now look ideally for simultaneous exchange and completion. If they don't, there's a caveat in the contract. And honestly, without exception, not one person had heard about that. So I felt that I'd added value to that experience. I probably hadn't, but it felt like I did. And from that added value, I was able to share with them and give them an opportunity to find out more about conveyancing from our conveyancing people. And really, that isn't dissimilar to the mortgage side of stuff. I think it needs to be brought up at the earliest opportunity. Of course, you get the rolled eyes from people who say, well, I've already been asked this 22 times. Excuse me. But I think just simply asking the question a number of times, I think the record that we have, one of our colleagues from our Biggleswade office got 7 no's before she got a yes for the FS appointment. And that, I think, is that's impressive. I think all too often, salespeople, think of themselves as, I mean, we give ourselves all sorts of euphemisms, don't we? We're advisors, we're consultants, we're all sorts of different things. But essentially, we're salespeople. And salespeople need to realise that they live in a climate of rejection. They need to realise that they're going to hear more no's than they hear yeses. And they also need to realise that the more times they hear a no, the more likely they are to get a yes. And that's something I certainly train my colleagues on a lot, to the point at which they get bored of me saying it. I reckon, I haven't actually done this actual analysis, but I bet if I looked at the top referrers for conveyancing and referrers for FS, the ones, in other words, that get the most yeses, I bet you they've also got the ones that have the most no's.
Yeah, and I also bet they're the ones who bring in the most fees for your business as well.
Oh, they do. Another interesting thing, which backs that up actually, I love it when we get new people on board. I love watching how they develop and hopefully how they succeed. And nearly every single time when they first join us, they're right at the top. Within the first month or two, they're right at the top of the FS referral league, financial service referral league, till about 2 or 3 months in, when everybody else has got to them to say, look, this is really difficult, you know. Before, and they didn't realise it was difficult, they just kept on asking. And then eventually, sometimes it gets knocked into them that it's really difficult to get an FS league. And then you see them go down the league again.
And do you find, I love this mentality, because I call it the Ed mentality. It's a new starter mentality that you find that a property that none of your colleagues have ever been able to sell, literally within the first week, somebody who's got no preconceptions always manages to sell it. Yeah,
that's right. Because they're ringing up the applicants, everybody thinks that they'll never go for it. And the new enthusiast rings up and, hi, I've got this property. I think we'll see you because of X, Y, and Z. I'd like to be. Yeah, I agree with it. Yeah.
There's a lesson there somehow. But coming back to what you said, I think you summed it up very nicely as to what estate agents do. They solve problems. And actually, you know, what you said about conveyancing and what you said about financial services is spot on, solving your problem. And again, you know, I think it's a fantastic example you gave on your accompanied viewings, where very simple question, have you heard about the new changes in the legal world? And actually, you know, it'd be really interesting to people listening on here. I want you to be very honest and very open. Has any of your team or you asked that question? Because it's a very simple question, you know, and John McGraw, when we had a guest on here before, he talked about how agency is very simple. Just by asking that simple question, look what you've got. You've got 5 financial service leads, but actually that's going to solve a customer's problem in the long term and save them time and save them trouble and potentially save them money. So I think that's gold. And actually, I think we were talking beforehand, not only do you accompanied viewings that you said, but last year you did some work on accompanying your listers and going through the whole listing process. So how was that for you, and what did you learn? And in fact, what made you do it in the first place?
I'll tell you what made us do it in the first place is that we noticed our conversion rate which normally was about 40%, just over 40%, but it was, let's say 40%. It went down to 30%. And of course, what you tend to do when you see that is you think, oh, it's not us, it's something else. It must be something. Oh, it's the time of the year. Oh no, we look back all the previous Januaries. No, it was definitely something we were doing wrong. And so we then set about in a very planned way how we were going to tackle this. And part of that plan, I won't bore you with the full plan, but part of the plan was to go out. I went out with all the listers to sit next to them, and this is in pre-COVID days, of course, sit next to them and analyse and give them direct feedback as to what I thought they were doing right and what I thought they perhaps could work on and improve. And it was absolutely fascinating. I mean, some of the mistakes that we were making were really, really basic, and people watching this might think, oh, big deal, but we think it's important to ask, for example, would you like me to take my shoes off? Even if people say, that doesn't worry me, it shows a degree of courtesy. Some of my colleagues weren't doing that. But the biggest issue that we had from this exercise was what we call lack of agenda setting. So what would happen is that we'd go into the house, and then the prospective vendor client would say, this is my lounge, and then my colleague would say something like, well, could we do that? A number of my colleagues didn't display proper control and didn't set an agenda. And although that might not sound important, what was happening is that as the presentation was going on, I could see it start to unravel. Because the vendor would be thinking, well, when am I going to be told about fees? When am I going to be told about the value? When is this going to end? And you could see they were distracted. Interestingly, the actual estate agent, my colleague that was doing it, was not aware of what they weren't doing. So by setting an agenda, that's just one thing. By setting an agenda, this is what's going to happen, Mr. Vendor. I'm really pleased that you've invited us out here today. What we're going to do is we're going to have a look around your property. We're then going to discuss value, and then like to run through with you how we're able to help you move your home, and then we'll answer any questions that you've got. It should take about an hour. Have you got any questions on that? Are you happy with that? Yeah. You might add a few more bits and bobs to it, but essentially putting people at ease, that was a really common mistake. So that was interesting. The other thing that I found was the most common error, and it's something I'm definitely guilty of myself, and that was speaking about features rather than benefits. So we would proudly say we're part of Relocation Agent Network with 700 branches. We're part of the Guild of Property Professionals with a branch in London. Both of which, of course, you'll recognise as features instead of bringing it down to a benefit. And so you could probably be an exaggeration to say you could see people's eyes glazing over, but you could sort of see there wasn't any real ignition, there wasn't any real interaction going on there. So those are the two big things I would say that I learned about it. And then we identified from that structured analysis, we identified what we needed. We then trained people on the top things that needed training on. We introduced Akaboom, which is a visual presentation. Obviously, other presentations are available, I'm sure. We found Akaboom to be really good and work really well for us. And then I went out with them all again and then tried to objectively score them again. And obviously the scores went up. I tried to be objective, and occasionally they didn't, but overall the average did. So that was a really, really good exercise.
Fantastic. And I think it's great that you went back on the floor, because again, it's very easy. So many business owners would just, the problem will resolve itself.
Yeah.
You were proactive, and you saw the changes. So where's the conversion rate now? Up to over 50?
It peaked at 56%.
Wow. Okay.
And last month it was 48%.
Okay. Well, that's
but it's every month, genuine every month since it's been over the 40%.
okay, which is a big difference. Well
Yeah.
done. So again, if there's anybody watching here, if you would like an agenda, put yes in the comments, and I've got an agenda that I will happily send to you. So just say yes for that. I want to come back on something that you.
Could you send me the agenda? I like looking at agendas.
No, you got to say yes first.
Yes.
Once you say yes in the comments, then I'll do it because I won't remember. No, I'm joking. I will send you an agenda. You talked about you have to deal with loads of no's in this business. No's, rejections, no's. So, let's face it, if you get rejected, loads of times and you can't do it, you shouldn't be an estate agent. Yeah. So what about yourselves? I mean, I'm sure you've had plenty of setbacks, plenty of no's. How do you deal with those setbacks and how do you deal with those no's?
Well, very simply, what I used to do, now I've become toughened to it, but what I used to do, one thing that I learned from a business colleague in a completely different business, they used to sell, it was a job agency. And what he knew that for every 3 phone calls he made, he'd get 1 appointment. And so every time he got a no, he'd put down the phone and say, brilliant. I said, no. Oh.
he was that excited by getting no. He would throw his toys out with Pram. Yeah,
he would. Oh,
see, that's what's good about this live, Simon. It makes it authentic.
It's genuinely live, as you can see. Sorry, I got a bit too excited there. Okay.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Excited, but he really got off on getting no's, and by really getting off and getting a no, he would know that every time he got a no, he was nearer to getting a yes. And I always try to remember that. It's a very simple thing, but it stood me in good stead. Every time I get a no, I'm nearer to a yes.
Okay. You reminded me, actually, you talk about fine and country, and I was at an industry do, and I was sat next to a gentleman, I won't name him because I don't want to embarrass him, at Fine and Country. And he asked what I did, and I told him, and he said, do you know what? I went on the market appraisal, and I said to the vendor, would you mind if I record it so I could take it back and play it in front of my team? So, and the vendor said, yeah, that's absolutely fine. So he came away thinking, wow, this was the most incredible market appraisal. I can't wait to play it. Got back and then played it in front of everybody. And then he realised he had been speaking 80% of the time, and listening only 20% of the time. And it really, and then he thought, hold on a second, it was such a great exercise to do, to record it, and it'd be interesting to know how many people have actually recorded their market appraisals with permission, brought it back and actually listened to it to think, you know what, how much I've done. So Sarah, I will send you a copy, and Sarah enjoyed your full, but not too much. Thanks for joining us, Sarah, appreciate it. I know you do loads of community work. You do loads of fantastic community work. And I think in lockdown, from memory, some people undertook a big walk, a daily walking 1,000 kilometers, which is fantastic. So share with the viewers about the community stuff and why you think it's so important, and what you do, which is amazing, by the way.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that. I don't want to come over as being too pious, but we really don't do it well, I certainly don't, for business reasons. If it doesn't sound too crass, we do it because it's absolutely brilliant fun. If we get any business as a result of it, hey ho. But I think that by encouraging colleagues within the company to feel responsible for their community and to contribute to their community is a great thing on its own. But honestly and truthfully, it's because it's great fun. So yeah, we did the colleagues that were unfortunately furloughed, they did a huge run, and they did raise over I think 1,500 quid or whatever it was for the NHS, which is absolutely superb. Really, as I know I keep on saying the word fun, but it is really good fun. But I think you need to keep your eyes and ears open for all sorts. You don't have to do anything really. I mean, we participate and help organise quite a few big events. So the Relocation Agent Network, Food Appeal, to help out local food banks. I mean, that was a great adventure in its own. I was charging up and down the country, collecting food and delivering it to other estate agents. Then I ended up actually in a food bank, which if you've never been to a food bank, highly recommend you go and visit a food bank. I mean, the organisation that is required for a food bank, the rules and stipulations that they have to follow, the organisation required is absolutely phenomenal. So I found that absolutely fascinating. But in the last 48 hours alone, what we've done, because now the whole team look out for this stuff, actually not the last 48 hours, in the last week. Yesterday, I had a call from a colleague at our Royston branch who said that they teamed up with a group in Royston called Royston First, and they had put animals in windows of various businesses around the town of Royston, and kids are supposed to walk around the town, identify the animals, and they win tickets to the Shepworth Wildlife Park. I mean, what a great idea. So we put that out on Facebook, and just so many people have looked at it and commented on it and are really interested in it. A couple of Sundays ago, the Sunday before I went away on holiday, so a week last Sunday, I was sitting in my office doing some bits and bobs, and I saw a chap walking past on the bridge outside my office who had not seen forever, and not very professionally. I put my head out the window. I said, "Hi, Pete, how you doing?" He said, "Oh, hi." Anyway, cut a long story short, I didn't realise this. I've known this guy, known him around the town for 20 years. He's actually, as well as having a full-time job, is a photography enthusiast, and he's got this thing called Chasing the Light. And he's spent the last X amount of years of his life chasing the most perfect light for a photograph. I said to him, "Well, tell me about this," and he told me all sorts of interesting stories. Anyway, cut a long story short again, he got an exhibition starting around the corner at a local cafe. And as I said, I didn't know the guy was a photographer. So as soon as I'd seen him, I put it out on Facebook. Now we've got photographs of his collection in our window instead of properties. And we've also now, I'm going to interview him tomorrow on Facebook at the local cafe. And he said, we didn't ask him for anything at all. But I saw that he put out on Facebook, "Oh, great, Thomas Morris has shown me support, blah, blah, blah." And I think, wow, how wonderful is that? And if you need any help or guidance, I would strongly recommend Agents Giving, who are a great charity organisation set up by estate agents for estate agents. Again, there's plenty of other of these charity organisations that do this sort of stuff that helps, makes you feel part of an estate agency community doing good things in the community. Yeah.
Brilliant. Fantastic. So I know most probably you didn't take time off during the lockdown and were working hard.
Yeah.
So what lessons have you learned coming out or really throughout the whole period? I mean, what changes do you think is going to happen in agency as a result?
Oh my goodness me. What? Okay, so I'm going to say some blooming obvious things. We worked out and found out that we can do a lot more with a lot less people. Now, whether that is a good thing or whether that's a bad thing is a subjective call, but that's a fact for us. We have done, I mean, I think in July we did 94% more net sales than we did in July 2019 with 65% of the people. No, it was June. So, I mean, there's so much in that, isn't it, that you can analyse. But basically, the lesson is you can do so much more with less people. The other thing that we learned is that, in fact, this will make you blush a little bit, Stephen. We didn't discuss this, and you might not even remember. But during the lockdown, I still made it my job to listen to people like yourself and other industry coaches and trainers. And you may or may not remember this, but there's one phrase that you used that stuck in my mind. And that was, because I was thinking, blimey, all these people on furlough, they're walking around the countryside raising money for charity, but are they, and I couldn't think of the right phrase, are they ready? And you used the phrase match fit. Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
Great phrase that was. Are they match fit? And I was thinking, well, I'm getting ready for all these boys and girls to come back into the ring and to go for it. But I was thinking, blimey, they've been off for weeks. Are they really match fit? And so we did some stuff as a consequence of that. So that's the other thing that I learned, that when people are off for a period of time, either literally or metaphorically, if they're mentally in a different place, you need to make sure that they're match fit when they come back onto the field.
Yeah, and actually that's a really good point, because I don't think, speaking to some agents, there are people still on furlough, and there's going to be people coming back soon. And again, are they match fit? Because there's going to still be people that are thinking 12 o'clock is a new norm, and they're going to get a big shock to their system when they're walking for 8, half 8, 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
What about you, Simon? What do you do to self-improve and keep yourself motivated the whole time?
I think I'm very lucky. I just do not find it a problem to keep myself motivated, because I just love, I really do. I just love, it's corny, I know, but I just love what I do. I wake up every morning and I think, brilliant, I've got this to do, I've got that to do. But there's a couple of things. I read a bit. I don't read as much as I should. And if I was looking back and I was to advise myself 25, 30 years ago, I'd say read more. I like watching YouTube videos. I find that's an easier way for me to process the information into my brain. The next thing I'm going to share might sound a bit strange, but this is what does motivate me. If I could go back and speak to myself, I would say fail more. Do some more things that you aren't successful at, because it's only by doing that you find out things that you can be more successful at. So I'm very proud of the things that we've done at Thomas Morris that have worked, but I'm more interested in the things that we've done that haven't worked. And I would try a few more. I'd like to have tried a few more things and failed at them within the world of estate agency. And I think there's so many more opportunities there now for us to have a go at and to succeed or fail at. But that's what motivates me. I like we've got some social media experiments happening at the moment. We're experimenting with sales funnels, or people call them click funnels. I think I'm pretty late to the game on this. A lot of other people seem to be really down this route. But I am gagging to get that started. Obviously, I wanted to succeed, but if it fails, I'll be interested to know what variable within that chain caused it to fail. And that's what motivates me, is learning from this stuff and working how we can improve on it. That's, I think, what really motivates me.
Okay, and I like the acronym FAIL, first attempt in learning.
Love it. Love it. Love it. I can't remember where I picked this up from. It was at a conference. It was to do with failure. And my staff are sick to death about me with this story. And I'm not absolutely sure if it's 100% true, but I think it. I think the name of the guy that shared it with me was Casper Berry. I don't know if you've ever seen him speak. He's a really super smart guy. He went over to America to become a professional poker player. And then he came back. He advised on one of the James Bond movies, Casino Royale, I think it was, on poker techniques and all the rest of it. And he now advises companies about motivating their sales force. And as an indication as to how important it is to fail, he asked the question, what is the common denominator of the top 100 most successful ice skaters in the world? And of course, I thought I must be proximity to the ice rink, because you can get to ice rinks earlier. Perhaps it was family members, so you got some pedigree there. Apparently, the common denominator between the most successful ice skaters in the world is they are the ones that fall down the most in practice. In other words, the ones again that fail the most, I guess, get the most amount of no's, which I just think is an absolutely fascinating idea. Whether it is technically true or not, I keep on sharing that with my team. Yeah, the more times we fall down, the more likely we are to eventually stay up properly.
Good. So what are your non-negotiables in your business? So if there were three, or maybe your non-negotiables to yourself.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, non-negotiables. I mean, I have to say, I do like the phrase that everything is negotiable, but I take the tone of what you're saying in the manner in which it's meant. I suppose for the business, this is going to be really boring, okay? really, really boring.
How to get rid of an audience, hey, and sell it.
No, this is not going to be inspiring, but it's something that if it hasn't made us a lot of money, it's certainly saved us a lot of money. The non-negotiable, put that in inverted commas because everything's negotiable, but the non-negotiable at Thomas Morris, I would say, is keep records of what you do. Gee whiz, how inspiring and exciting that is. But what I mean by that is that we know that we get complaints, concerns from our customers from time to time. And generally speaking, by the time they come across my desk, they're reasonably serious. We might be a while away from involving the ombudsman, but we need to go through our complaints process before we go to the ombudsman. I'm a big believer in using the ombudsman to help us resolve our issues. And the first thing I look for, so you'll have the vendor's version or the landlord's version, then you'll have the negotiator's version. And of course, the negotiator's opening gambit is, oh no, that wasn't me. But then I go to look at the evidence, and my teams know what I'm like. They know what I'm going to do. I go straight, we use Repeat. I go straight on to Repeat, and I look if everything. So even if it's a low-level complaint, there wasn't enough communication from Thomas Morris, let's say. I'll then go and look at the notes. And one of the things I look at is that where there's an offer, I like to see the story of the offer, not just the figures. Mr. offered 250, Mr. vendor said no because of X, Y, and Z. Purchaser said they would like to go up to such and such, but couldn't because of A, B, and C, that sort of stuff, so I can see the story. Most importantly, I like to, not most importantly, but very importantly, I like to see, rang Mr. Vendor, wasn't in, rang at 10:17 on the 28th of the 9th, left message on answer machine. Then I'm thinking to myself, okay, what we have here now is evidence of us communicating with this person we're attempting to communicate, and it's very rarely that we're left with his word against his word or her word against her word. Normally we've got some evidence. So, and a number of times, because I encourage people after our complaints procedure has been gone through to take us to the ombudsman. I just think it's a great system. And very, very often when we get the report back from the ombudsman, they do comment on our notes. And I bet those notes have saved us tens of thousands of pounds in potential fines and made us tens of thousands of pounds in fees that we would otherwise have got. So some advice I was given by a barrister friend was make sure you keep full and contemporaneous notes. So that's full notes detailing everything made at the time. So you don't go back and say 6 months later, oh, I definitely spoke to this person. Made at the time, full notes. As I said, that is a very boring non-negotiable.
No, and I think you're right there, Simon, because going back to my agency days, I had exactly the same thing. So I had an email trail where we were due, I think it was 1.75% in fees. We exchanged, sent a message to the vendor. They delighted we've exchanged, congratulations. She said, send me the invoice, please, at 1.25%. And I said to her, here you go, here's what you sent to me a couple of weeks ago. And it's right, there you go. And it just makes it so much easier.
Yeah. It's very satisfying. So if there was, we have a saying, if it's not been recorded, it didn't happen.
Okay, brilliant.
Record everything, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. So one final question. Apart from reading,
Yeah.
What advice would you be giving to some people that are just starting their journey into the estate agency industry, that you're passionate, that you love, that you still enjoy after these few years in it?
Oh my goodness, mate. So what advice would I give to somebody who's just starting out?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I'm supposed to come up with something fantastically inspirational, but my advice would be to make a plan. In my old days, when I first started with Egan's, we had what was called a plan for the day, which I'm sure a lot of people watching this would have had a similar thing. I still use the same system now. I don't use a digital diary. I don't use all these modern thingamajiggy, my flops. I use an ordinary diary, and I write down all the things that I'm supposed to do at the beginning of the day. And then as I do them, I'll share with you a very sad secret, Stephen, in a minute. As I do each one, I tick it off. Sometimes, if I do something that's not in my plan for the day, I write it in the plan for the day, and then I tick it off. So I have that fantastic satisfaction of actually having evidence of me doing what I wanted to do. And then at the end of the day, I might have 4 or 5 things left, and then I move them into the diary for the next page. And again, that might not sound very exciting or very inspirational, but if every estate agent did that, there are various ways of, you can, some people use a 1, 2, 3 system, so what's most important gets a 1 against it, that's fine. But write everything down, tick it off, and then in the cover behind me, I've got diaries going back tens of years, and you can see that happening. And that would be my advice. I know it's incredibly boring and incredibly simple, but write out what you're going to do, and at the end, and as you do them, tick it off, and then move it forward to the next day. Very uninspiring, but a very practical piece of advice from my perspective.
Well, it stood you in great stead. So, Simon, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your lessons that you shared. You've been fantastic. So really grateful. On Thursday, I'll be joined by Jonathan Hanford. You may know Jonathan. So he's Thursday at 12:30. Jonathan's going to be joining us. So I look forward to that.
Was that Fine and Country, Jonathan Hanford?
Yes. Country, Jonathan.
He is brilliant. Definitely tune in for him. He's
thank you.
really good. He's really still on the front line. I was at a Fine and Country meeting with him last week, and he was literally in his car about to go into a listing and joined our meeting from the car just before we went. He's a great guy. I think I'll tune into that myself. Great.
Hey, good. Got another, at least I got one viewer then. Yeah. So thanks very much, everybody, for watching. Paul, thanks very much. Great session. Have a really productive Tuesday afternoon. Simon, thank you once again for your time. Really appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Have a great afternoon. Bye.
Cheers.